Welcome to second part of the Sage 50 tutorials. This is a training designed for the advanced level users of Sage 50. A quick recap from the last part. In the first part, we discussed some beginner level Sage 50 utilities. We studied about navigation within Sage 50, menu bar of Sage 50, customizing Sage 50 shortcuts, creating a new company in Sage 50, converting QuickBooks file in Sage 50, customer default settings in Sage 50, vendor default settings in Sage 50, inventory default settings in Sage 50, payroll default settings in Sage 50, employee default settings in Sage 50, creating local backup in Sage 50, creating cloud backup in Sage 50, restoring local backup in Sage 50, setting up security and user settings in Sage 50, General Ledger in Sage 50, setting up sales tax in Sage 50, enter records in Sage 50. Now we will deep dive in Sage 50 and use it for many advanced purposes. These will include using Sage 50 to use Accounts Receivable, use Accounts Payable, manage inventory, use Payroll, manage account, track jobs, use time and billing, use settings and tools, use reporting tools, understand account review, use action items, use assets and liabilities, use the help option. Hi, I am Hannah. I will walk you through this training. Setting statement and invoice defaults. To set statement and invoice defaults, select Maintain, Default Information, Statement or Invoices from the menu bar to open the Statement or Invoices Defaults window. On the Statement Print Options tab, select the options that must be met for a customer to receive a statement. Select the default statement type, and also decide if the company information will print on the statements and invoices. On the Dunning Messages tab, enter the Dunning message to print on statements and invoices for each aging category you create. Click OK when you are finished. To make quotes, sales orders, sales invoices, issue credit memos, enter receipts, take prepayments and make deposits, follow the following steps. Start the Sage 50 application. Open the Fakiko Incorporated Company file completed through the end of the previous chapter's exercise. Select Tasks, then the System, and then change Accounting Period from the menu bar. Select Period within the Change Accounting Period window. Click the OK. Now select Tasks, select Quotes, select the Sales Orders, then Proposals. Then select Quotes from the menu bar. In the Quotes window that appears, select the Customer ID from the Customer ID drop-down menu. Type the date in the Date field. Enter the quote in the Quote Number field. Click into the line item area and type in the quantity in the first row. Select the item from the drop-down menu for that same row. Click the Save button in the toolbar at the top of the Quotes Windows toolbar. Select the customer ID. Click the OK button if Sage 50 notifies you that this customer is over their credit limit. Type in the date field. Enter the quote number field. Click into the line item area and type the quantity in the first row. Select the item from the drop-down menu. Click the Save button in the toolbar at the top of the Quotes Windows toolbar. Click the List button in the toolbar at the top of the Quotes window to display a listing of quotes. Double-click the quote within the list to open the quote again. Click the Close button within the quote list window to close it. Click the Convert button in the middle of the toolbar at the top of the Quotes window. Select the Sale or Invoice option button. Enter the invoice into the Invoice Number field. And then click the OK button to convert the quote into an invoice. Click the List button in the toolbar at the top of the Quotes window to display a listing of quotes. Double-click Quote within the list to open the quote within the Quotes window. Click the Close button within the Quote List window to close it. Click the Convert button in the middle of the toolbar at the top of the Quotes window. Click the Yes button to let the customer go over their credit limit if Sage 50 notifies you of this. Select the Sales Order option. Enter service order in SO. Into the SO number field. And then click the OK button to convert the quote. Click Close within the Quotes window to close the window. Now select Tasks, then Quotes. Select the sales orders or proposals. Select the sales orders from the menu bar. In the Sales Orders window, select Customer with the help of Customer ID drop-down menu. Enter the date in the Date field. Enter the date into the Ship By field. Enter the service order number in the SO number field. Click into the line item area and type in the quantity in the first row. Select the item from the Item Columns drop-down menu within the same row. Click into the Unit Price column within the same row and enter the price. Click the Save button within the toolbar at the top of the Sales Orders window. Click the Close button within the toolbar at the top of the Sales Orders window. Select Tasks. Select Sales or Invoicing from the menu bar. Select the Customer ID from the drop-down menu within the Sales or Invoicing window. Enter the date into the Invoice Date field. Enter the invoice number into the invoice number field. Click into the line item area and enter the quantity. Enter the item from the Item Columns drop-down menu within the first blank row. Enter into the Unit Price column within the same row. Click the Amount Paid at Sale link at the bottom of the window to open the Receive Money window. Enter the number in the Reference field. Enter the receipt amount. Make sure that the cash account is set to Master Checking Account. Select the payment method from the drop-down. Click the OK button at the top of the window to record the full payment at the time of sale. Click the Save button at the top of the Sales or Invoicing window to save the record. Select Customer from the Customer ID drop-down. Click the OK button if Sage 50 notifies you that this customer is over their credit limit. Enter Date into the Date field. Enter the Invoice Number field. Select Sales Order from the drop-down list on the Apply to Sales Order Number tab. Enter Quantity into the Shipped field. Click the Save button in the toolbar at the top of the window. Click the Close button to exit the Sales or Invoicing window. Select Tasks. Select Credit Memos from the menu bar. Select Customer ID from the Customer ID drop-down menu. Enter the date into the Date field. Enter Credit Number into the Credit Number field. Click the Apply to Sales tab below to bring that tab forward. In the first row, enter a quantity and select Item from the Item drop-down. Click Save in the toolbar at the top of the Credit Memos window. Click Close in the toolbar at the top of the Credit Memos window. Select Tasks, Receive Money from the menu bar to collect payments. Select Customer ID from the Customer ID drop-down menu. Enter the check or reference. Enter Receipt Number into the Receipt Number field. Enter the date into the Date field. Click the Pay checkbox on the Apply to Invoices tab for all the invoices shown on the tab. Click the Save button in the toolbar at the top of the window. Next, you will take a prepayment from the Customer ID drop-down. Enter the check number into the Check or Reference field. Enter Receipt Number if needed. Enter the date into the Date field. Set the account to Master Checking Account if needed. Next, to the Apply to Revenues tab, check the Prepayment checkbox. Click into the first row on that tab and type Prepayment into the description field. Enter amount into the Amount field within that same row. Click the Save button in the toolbar at the top of the Receive Money window. Click the Close button in the toolbar at the top of the Receive Money window. To deposit funds that have been received, select Tasks, select For Deposit from the menu bar. Select the Account ID from the drop-down if needed. Set the date as the deposit ticket date. Enter the deposit ticket ID into the Deposit Ticket ID field. Click the Deposit checkbox for all the amounts listed. Click the Save button at the top of the window. Click the Close button at the top of the window. Accounts Payable. To create purchase orders, take payments, take vendor credits, and write checks, follow the following steps. Start the Sage 50 application. Open the company file completed through the end of the previous exercise. Select the tasks, select the purchase orders from the menu bar. Select Vendor ID from the Vendor ID drop-down menu in the Purchase Orders window. Select the payment or a date. Enter a purchase number. In item area, type the quantity in the first row. In the description column within the same row, type the description. Select the GL account from the drop. Click this. Select the payment or the unit price within the same row. Make sure to save the purchase order. Now you will create a drop shipment by selecting the vendor ID. Enter the date and select the sale or invoice. Click the checkbox and invoice to customer ID. Make sure from the customer ID drop-down menu. In the line item area, enter 5 into the quantity column in the first row. Select an item from the Item Columns drop-down menu. Click Save to save the drop shipment. Click Close to close the purchase orders window. Select the tasks. Select the purchases or receive inventory from the menu bar. Select the vendor ID drop-down. Enter the date. Type in the invoice number. Click into the first row in the line item area. printing of manuals into the description column. Enter the amount into the amount column within the same row. Click into the next row and enter the description column. Enter the amount in the amount column within the same row. Enter to the next row and enter Setup and press in the description column. Enter the amount in the amount column within the same row. Click the Save button at the top of the window to save the bill. Select the vendor ID from the Vendor ID dropdown. Select the sale or invoice. In the first row in the line item area, type the description. Click the drop-down arrow next to the Copy button in the toolbar at the top of the window. Then select the Create Recurring command from the drop-down menu. Select the Monthly Recurrence option and enter amount into the End After field. Type Rent 02 into the Begin with Number field. Click to save this bill and automatically create another in every month for 11 months. Now we will receive the drop shipment. For the example, assume that you were sent invoice number 10232 from Computers and More for the drop shipment. Select the Vendor ID drop-down menu. Enter date. Enter the invoice number in the invoice field. Click the purchase order from the drop-down on the Apply to Purchase Order. Click this. Select the payment. Enter received number. Click Save to save the transaction. Click Close to close the Purchases or Receive Inventory screen. Select the Sale or Invoice. Select Tasks, Vendor Credit Memos from the menu bar. Select the vendor ID. Type in the date. Type in the credit number in the field. Select the Apply to Purchases tab. Enter the quantity. Select the item from the drop-down menu. Click the Save button to save the vendor credit memo. Click the Close button in the toolbar at the top of the Vendor Credit Memos window. Pay bills by selecting Tasks, Payments from the menu bar. Select Master Checking Account as the cash account to use for this transaction in the Select a Cash Account window. And click the OK button to continue. Vendor ID of 01 Comp. Already wrote the check to the vendor. Click the core reference number of 3285. Click this. Enter a date. an invoice default box for the invoices. Click the Save button to save the transaction. Enter a vendor ID. Assuming that we already wrote the check, enter a check number. Enter a date of 2/24/15. Click the Pay checkbox for invoices. Click the Save button in the toolbar at the top of the Payments window to save the transaction. Click the Close button to close the Payments window. Let's learn about the payroll utilities and an invoice default. Start the Sage 50 application. Open the company file completed through the end of the previous chapter's exercise. To make, maintain, employees or sales reps from the menu bar. Type in the employee ID. Click the Employee option button that appears next to the employee's name. To make address and phone number, enter the Social Security number. Click the Additional Info tab and then enter Date into the Hired Date field. Click the Withholding Info tab. For the Federal Payroll field, enter Filing Status. For the State Payroll field, enter Married or Jointly under Filing Status under Allowances. Enter State for the state or locality. For the Local Payroll field, enter Not Required. Pay Info tab. An invoice to select Salary from the Pay Method dropdown. Select the frequency from the dropdown. Enter amount in the first salary pay rate field. Click the Save button in the toolbar at the top of the window to save this employee's information. Click New in the toolbar at the top of the window to start a new record. Enter another employee details here. Click New in the toolbar at the top of the window to start a new record. Click the General tab. Click the Employee Beginning Balances button to enter beginning balances for employees. Select the Employee ID from drop and invoice to file. Enter date into column. Enter values. An invoice to click the Save button at the top of the window when you are finished. Select an employee from the click this. Enter details. Click the Save button at the top of the window when you are finished. Click Close to return to the Maintain and Invoice Default Reps screen. The company has just hired a new employee who will work with time ticket hours. Next, you will create the new employee record. Type Close into the Employee ID field. Enter name into the Name field. Enter the employee's address. Click the Close Info tab and then enter date into the Hired Date field. Click the Withholding Info tab. For the Federal Payroll field, enter Married under Filing Status. For the State Payroll field, enter Married or Jointly under Filing Status, the state in the state or locality. To make Payroll field, enter Not Required. Click the Pay Info tab. Select Hourly, Time Ticket Hours from the Pay Method dropdown. Enter into the Rate Used to Bill Customers field. Enter numbers in Regular Hourly Pay Rate field. Enter figures into the Overtime Hourly Pay Rate field. Click the Save button in the toolbar at the top of the window to save this employee's information. Click the Close button within the toolbar at the top of the Maintain Employees and Sales Reps window. Now enter a paycheck for an employee by selecting Tasks, Payroll Entry from the menu bar. Click Close in the message box that appears. Select Payroll Checking Account from the drop-down within the Select a Cash Account dialog box, and then click the OK button to continue. Select Employee from Employee ID drop-down within the Payroll Entry window. Enter the date. Enter the Pay Period Ends field. Enter numbers into the Fed_income field and invoice to enter numbers into the Social_Security field. Enter numbers into the Medicare field. Enter numbers into the State_income field. Enter numbers into the Vacation_accrue field. Enter numbers into the Vacation_remain field. To make numbers into the Sick_accrue field. Enter numbers into the Sick_remain field. The Social_Security_C field. Enter numbers into the Medicare_C field. Enter numbers into the Federal_unemployment_C field. Enter numbers into the State_unemployment_C field. Click the Save button in the toolbar at the top of the Payroll Entry window to save the paycheck. Click the Close button within the Payroll Entry window to close the paycheck. management. Writing checks. 1. To quickly write checks and apply the amount to one or more accounts for payments that don't involve invoices or inventory items, select Tasks, Write Checks from the menu bar to open the Write Checks window. 2. Enter the vendor ID of the vendor being paid into the vendor ID field. 3. If paying a vendor without an ID, leave this field blank and type the name of the vendor into the Pay to the Order of field. 4. You can enter the vendor's address information if they aren't in your vendor's list under the Pay to the Order of field 2. 5. If printing this check, leave the check number field blank. 6. Otherwise, fill in the check number of the check that you wrote to the vendor. 7. Enter the date the check was created in the Date field. 8. Enter the amount of the check into the dollars field. 9. Select the account from which the check will draw its funds from the Cash Account field. 10. Enter the account to which you will attribute the payment from the Expense Account field. 11. To attribute the total amount to multiple accounts, click the Split button to open the Split Transaction window. 12. In this window, you can split the total value of the check between multiple accounts. 13. Click OK in this window to return to the check. You can enter a memo for the check into the Memo field. 15. To save the check when you are finished creating it, click the Save button in the Windows toolbar. 16. To print the check, click the Print button in the toolbar to open the Print Forms Disbursement Checks dialog box. 17. Enter the first check number to print into the first check number field. 18. To select a different check form to use, click the Select Form button to open another dialog box where you can select the check form to use and then click the OK button. 19. If needed, select what to replace the item ID with from the Replace Item ID with drop-down. 20. To print the check, click the Print button in the dialog box. Voiding checks. 1. To void a check, open the Void Existing Checks window by selecting Tasks, Void Checks from the menu bar. 2. Use the Account ID drop-down to select the account that contains the check to void. 3. Use the Void Date drop-down to select the date as of which to void the check. 4. In the Void Existing Checks window, select the check to void in the list of checks that appears. 5. Then click the Void button. 6. A prompt then appears asking if you really want to void the check. 7. Click Yes if you do, or click No if you don't. 8. Then click the Close button when you are done. Reconciling bank accounts. 1. To reconcile an account, select Tasks, Account Reconciliation from the menu bar to open the Account Reconciliation window. 2. Select the ID of the account to reconcile from the Account to Reconcile drop-down. 3. Then enter the statement date from the account statement into the Statement Date field. 4. If needed, you can reconcile information from prior accounting periods without leaving the current accounting period by selecting the prior period statement date within the desired prior period to reconcile from the Statement Date field. 5. Next, enter the account's balance as of the statement date into the Statement Ending Balance field. 6. At this point, all the selected accounts transactions appear in a list with deposits and bank credits shown first. 7. To change which items appears in the transaction list, use the Show drop-down menu at the top of the window. 8. You use this information to then reconcile the account transactions in Sage 50 with your bank account statement by marking the transactions that appear within the statement as cleared in Sage 50. 9. As you clear the Sage 50 transactions, the unreconciled difference shown at the bottom of the window approaches 0. After marking all your cleared transactions, the difference should be and invoiced. To enter bank service fees and interest earned directly into the reconciliation window, Ensure you click the Expand button in the lower left corner of this window to expand the Interest Earned or Service Charges section if needed. 11. Then enter any service charges or interest income into the fields of the same names in this section. 12. Be sure to also enter the date these transactions occurred and the associated account used to track their value, like a bank service fees expense account or an interest earned income account. 13. To clear transactions shown within the account transaction list, check the checkbox at the left of any transaction to mark it as cleared. 14. To save your changes and close the account reconciliation window, click the OK button in the Windows toolbar. 15. You can return at any time to finish the reconciliation if needed. 16. To clear a range of transactions, click the Multiple button in the Windows toolbar to open the Clear Transactions dialog box. 17. In this dialog box, select the types of transactions to clear from the Type drop-down. 18. Then select whether to clear the transactions based on reference number or date range. 19. Then enter a range of reference numbers or a date range within which to mark the selected type of transactions as cleared. 20. Then click the OK button to clear the range of transactions. 21. To link a bank feed to your account through Sage Bank Feeds, which is a separate service, click the Bank Feeds button in the toolbar, and then select the Connect to Bank Feed command to open the Sage Bank Feeds window. 22. Enter and confirm your email here, and then accept the terms and conditions to continue. 23. Then follow the steps in the Sage Bank Feeds wizard to authenticate yourself and access your bank's online account feed. 24. To import a local copy of a bank statement to match against the transactions, click the Import button in the toolbar to open the Import Statement window. 25. To use this feature, you must have already downloaded a copy of the bank statement from your bank's website. 26. Then click the Browse button to open a dialog box that lets you select and open the saved statement file. 27. To import the statement after selecting it, click the Import button to open a Select Account window where you can select the account from which to import. 28. To select reconciliation reports if needed, click the Reports button in the Windows toolbar and then select the report to open. 29. You can also click the Clear drop-down in the toolbar to select either Check All, which checks every transaction to mark them all as cleared, or Uncheck All, which unchecks every transaction to mark them all as uncleared. 30. To enter new transactions that affect the account reconciliation, click the Add New and Invoice to drop-down menu of an invoice devices you can open to enter additional transactions. 31. Then select either General Journal Entry, Write Check, Receipt, or Account Register to open the task window, and then enter the additional transactions if needed. 32. If you are just beginning to use Sage 50, you may need to click the Beginning Transactions gray arrow button in the lower right corner of the Interest Earned or Service Charges section when it is expanded to open the Beginning Transactions window. 33. In this window, you can enter transactions that occurred before the Sage 50 company file's start date. These transactions will not affect the general ledger, and they are only used for account reconciliation. Changing the accounting period. 1. To change accounting periods, select Tasks, System, Change Accounting Period from the menu bar, or click the Current Period button in the toolbar at the top of most Navigation Center windows. 2. In the Change Accounting Period window, click the accounting period to open in the list of available accounting periods at the left side of the window. 3. Click the OK button in the toolbar at the top of the window to an invoice deflected accounting period. Check Let's start with time and billing by adding time ticket employees. To set an employee to be paid using time tickets, select Maintain, Employees or Sales Reps from the menu bar to open the Maintain Employees and Sales Reps window. Select the name of the employee from the Employee ID dropdown or enter the employee's data if creating a new employee. To set the employee to be paid by time tickets, click the Pay Info tab. Select Hourly Time Ticket Hours from the Pay Method dropdown. To enter an hourly rate used to bill customers for this employee, enter it into the Rate Used to Bill Customer field. Complete the rest of the employee's record if needed. To save the employee's record when finished, click the Save button in the Windows toolbar. Entering activity items. To create an activity item, select Maintain Inventory Items from the menu bar to open the Maintain Inventory Items window. Create a new item and use the Item Class drop-down to select Activity Item. Enter the rest of the information for the item into the fields. To save the item when finished, click the Save button in the Windows toolbar. Entering charge items. 1. To create a charge item, select Maintain Inventory Items from the menu bar to open the Maintain Inventory Items window. 2. Create a new item and use the Item Class drop-down to select Charge Item. 3. Enter the rest of the information for the item into the fields. 4. To save the item when finished, click the Save button in the Windows toolbar. Entering time tickets. 1. To enter a single time ticket, select Tasks, Time or Expense, Time Tickets from the menu bar to open the Time Tickets window. 2. Alternatively, to enter multiple time tickets into a weekly timesheet, select Tasks, Time or Expense, Weekly Timesheet from the menu bar instead to open the Weekly Timesheet window. 3. In either window, select whether the time ticket is for an employee or a vendor by choosing the desired option button. 4. Then select the specific employee or vendor for whom you are recording the ticket by using the drop-down that appears below the option buttons. 5. If using the Weekly Timesheet window, select the correct week for time ticket entry by using the Week Including drop-down to select a day of the week that includes your time ticket entry days, or by using the Previous Week and Next Week buttons to select a week for time ticket entry. 6. The days then appear in the grid below. 7. If using the Time Tickets window to select the purpose of the time ticket, use the To Be Applied drop-down to select to a customer invoice, against a job, or as an administrative task. 8. If using the Weekly Timesheets window to select the purpose of the time ticket, use the Customer, Job, Administrative drop-down to select either Customer, Job, or Administrative. 9. If you select the Customer or Job options, use the Adjacent drop-down within either window to select the customer or job for which the ticket is being recorded. 10. If entering a time ticket through the Time Tickets window, select the date to record from the Time Details area. 11. In either window, enter the activity item that identifies the type of timed activity to record. 12. If using the Time Tickets window, enter the duration of the selected activity item into the Time Details section. 13. Using the Weekly Timesheet window, enter the same activity durations into the boxes for each day shown. 14. If the time activity recorded in the ticket is for an employee, you can also select a pay level from their employee record if the employee can be paid by time tickets. 15. If the time recorded is for a customer or job, then select a billing type for the ticket. 16. You can also enter a billable rate if needed for future customer billing. 17. Then set the billing status for the ticket. 18. To save the time ticket after recording the time data, click the Save button in the toolbar at the top of either window. Entering expense tickets. To create an expense ticket, select Tasks, time or expense. Expense tickets from the menu bar to open the expense tickets window. Select whether this is an expense to record for an employee or a vendor by selecting the desired option button within the Whose Expense is Being Recorded section. Then use the adjacent drop-down in the same section to select the employee or vendor for whom you are recording the expense. Use the To Be Applied drop-down within the Why is this ticket being recorded section to select whether this ticket is being applied to a customer invoice, against a job, or as an administrative task. If you select either the To a Customer Invoice or Against a Job choice from the drop-down, then use the adjacent drop-down that appears within the same section to select the customer or job to which this ticket is applied. Select the Charge item in the Item Details section for which you are recording the expense ticket. If the charge is to be used in future invoicing, you can enter a description to use within the invoice into the Invoice Description field. Use the Ticket Date drop-down in the Ticket Details section to select the expense ticket date. If the expense is reimbursable to an employee, check the Reimbursable to Employee checkbox. To select a billing status for the expense ticket if it is being recorded for a customer or a job, use the Billing Status drop-down in the Billing Details section. Then use the Quantity, Unit Price, and/or Billing Amounts fields to record the information for billing the customer or job. To record the expense ticket, click the Save button in the toolbar at the top of the window. Billing time and expense tickets. To invoice a customer after entering time and expense tickets for the customer or job, open the Sales or Invoicing window and select the ID of the customer to bill. Then click the Apply Tickets or Expenses hyperlink under the Line Items section to open the Apply Tickets or Reimbursable Expenses dialog box. Sage 50 displays the tickets you have entered for the customer or job on the Time Tickets and Expense Tickets tabs. Click the appropriate tab to view the tickets listed there. To add tickets to the invoice, check the Tickets Use checkbox. To mark up specified ticket amounts by an amount or a percentage if needed, use the Write Up button in the toolbar at the top of the dialog box. Alternatively, you can also manually enter any markups to the amounts by changing the amounts listed in the Invoice Amount field. To mark a ticket as not billable, check the No Bill checkbox for that ticket's line item. To choose which description to use for invoicing, select an option button at the top of the dialog box. You can sort the ticket list by making a choice from the Sort List By drop-down. To choose a consolidation method when adding multiple selected tickets to an invoice, use the Consolidate By drop-down. To add the tickets to the invoice after selecting them, click the OK button in the toolbar at the top of this dialog box. Then finish and save the invoice as normal. Use the Write Up button in the toolbar at the top of the dialog box. Alternatively, Job tracking. In the module, we will start with setting up a job. Setting up a job. To set up a job in Sage 50 Premium Accounting, select Maintain, Job Costs, Jobs from the menu bar to open the Maintain Jobs window. To create a new job if needed, click the New button in the Windows toolbar. At the top of the window, enter a job ID code into the Job ID field. An invoice for a job description into the Description field. Enter the actual start date of the job into the Start Date field. Enter a projected end date for the job into the Projected End Date field. After completing the job, enter the job's actual end date into the Actual End Date field for reporting purposes. Use the Job Status indicator to select the current job status. On the General tab, enter the supervisor for the job into the Supervisor field if applicable. Select the ID of the customer for whom you are performing the job from the For Customer field. Enter the job address information into the fields available. Enter the job type in the Job Type field. Enter the purchase order number from the customer for the job into the PO number field if applicable. As you complete the job, you can return to the screen to indicate what percentage of the job is complete in the % complete field. There is also a button for beginning balances for the job if you need to enter jobs when initially creating your company file. Enter the values for the job into the custom fields that you created for the jobs you perform. When you set up the job defaults, click the Estimated Expenses and Revenue tab to enter the job's estimated expenses and revenues. If you have created phases or cost codes and wish to enter expenses and revenues for the job by phases or cost codes, then check the Use Phases to Track Job in More Detail checkbox under the Description field at the top of the window. To the Phase ID column that appears, and select the name of a job phase from the drop-down menu. If using cost codes, you can then select a cost code for that phase from the Cost Code ID column to the right of the Phase ID for that same row. You can then enter an invoice of units, expenses, and revenues that you expect to attribute to the selected phase and/or cost code. Then repeat this process in the next row until you have entered all the necessary phases and/or cost codes for the job and their associated units, expenses, and revenues. An invoice for any notes for the job into the Note and Invoice to save the job when finished. An invoice to click the Save button in the toolbar of this window. Creating custom fields for jobs. To create custom fields for jobs, select Maintain, Default Information, Jobs from the menu. An invoice to Job Defaults. An invoice to on the Custom Fields tab. Create up to 5 custom fields to track information for customer jobs you perform. To save your changes, click the OK and Invoice to Finished. To create job phases, select Maintain, Job Costs, Phases from the menu bar to open the Maintain Phases window. Type an invoice into the Phase ID field. Enter a description of the phase into the Description field. Note that you can check the Inactive checkbox later to inactivate phases you have created but no longer use if need an invoice to select a cost type. Choose the This phase uses the cost type drop-down and an invoice to select the cost and an invoice to with the phase. To use an invoice to select the an invoice to cost codes option button. You can create the cost codes within the Maintain Cost Codes window after creating the necessary phases. An invoice to save the phase you have created, click the Save button in the toolbar at the top of the window. Creating cost codes for phases. An invoice to cost codes for phases, select an invoice to an invoice to costs. An invoice to cost codes from an invoice to open the Maintain an invoice to photo. an invoice to enter the ID of the new cost code into the cost code ID field. Then enter the description of the code into the description field. Note the inactive checkbox, which you can use later. An invoice to cost codes you no longer use if needed. Use the "This cost code uses the cost type" drop-down. An invoice to the cost type to assign to the cost code. Click the Save button in the toolbar at the top of the an invoice to the new cost code. If using an invoice to assigning job cost, an invoice to simply an invoice to and revenues to a job and a specific phase within the job, and then to the correct cost code. An invoice to this within the same an invoice to in the line item areas of the sales and purchase forms in Sage 50. Entering beginning balances for a job. To enter beginning balances for jobs, select Maintain, Job Costs, Jobs from the menu bar. On the General tab, click the Job Beginning Balances button to display the Job Beginning Balance. Maintain. Double-click the first job for which to enter a beginning balance on the Job Balances tab, to then make the detailed entries for that job on the Job Entries for Job Name tab. Enter a date for the job beginning balance amount into the Date field. Enter an amount for expenses or an amount for revenues under either the Expenses or Revenues field. To save an invoice to when you are finished entering an invoice to click the Save button. Making purchases for jobs. To enter purchases for jobs in the Purchase Orders, Purchases or Receive Inventory, enter bills, payments, write checks, or other purchasing windows. Use the Job column at the right end of the Line Items sections to assign line item amounts an invoice to jobs and record an invoice to purchase information. Click the Save button in the Windows toolbar. Invoicing for job purchases. To invoice customers for job purchases if needed, open the Sales or Invoicing window and select the customer to bill for the job costs. An invoice to apply tickets or expenses hyperlink under the an invoice to in the window to open the Apply Tickets or Reimbursable Expenses dialog box, which shows an invoice to In this dialog box, click the Reimbursable Expenses tab to view the job expenses, and then click the Use checkbox for any expenses to use in the invoice. To delete any expenses, click the Del checkbox to remove them from this window. To mark up items, click the Write Up button to mark up specified items by an amount or a percentage. Alternatively, you could also enter any markups to the amount by manually changing the amounts listed in the invoice. When finished, click the OK button in this window to add the items to the invoice. Then complete and save the customer invoice as normal. An invoice tips. When entering purchases and invoicing customers, you can optionally assign items and services to customer jobs to compare actual costs to estimated costs and actual revenue to estimated revenue. An invoice to open a report showing the transactions for your jobs if tracking job costs. An invoice to run the Jobs Ledger report by selecting Reports and Forms, Jobs from the menu bar. Ensure the Reports tab is selected. Then select the Jobs Ledger from the list of reports. Then click the Display button at the top of the Select a Report or Form window to view the transactions for the different jobs and the totals for the jobs form window to view the transactions for the different jobs and the totals for the jobs. To be able to run the internal accounting review, start the Sage 50 application. Open an invoiced incorporated company file completed through the end of the previous chapter's exercise. Select Reports and Forms, Internal Accounting Review from the menu bar. Scroll through the information shown within the Internal Accounting Review window. There shouldn't be any issues other than the fact that you haven't reconciled a few accounts. Close the Internal Accounting Review window. Save this company file for the following exercises within this tutorial. You will need the file and need to complete the exercises at the end of each of the following chapters in sequential order to complete all the exercises within the tutorial. To be able to create an event, a to-do item list, and an alert, start the Sage 50 application. Open the Fakiko Incorporated Company file completed through the end of the previous chapter's exercise. Select Tasks, Action Items from the menu bar. Click the Events tab within the Action Items window. Select 3/17/19 from the Date selector within the Action Items window. Click the Event button in the toolbar at the top of the Action Items window to open the Create Event window. Select Customer or Prospect from the Type drop-down. Select Sheldon from the ID drop-down. Enter 3/17/19 into the Date field. Select the Meeting option button within the Event Type section. Click into the Notes field and type Meeting to discuss new network setup. Click the Save button in the toolbar at the top of the window to save the event. Click the Close button in the toolbar at the top of the window to close it. Click the To-Do tab within the Action Items window. Click into the Date column within the first blank row and type 3/17/19. Click into the Notes column within the same row and type Reconcile Account 10200. Click the To-Do tab again to set the reminder. Click the Alerts tab within the Action Items window. Click the Alerts button in the toolbar at the top of the Action Items window. In the Set Company Alerts window, click into the Apply To column in the first blank row and select Customer from the drop-down and Invoice. Select Holiday from the adjacent From columns drop-down menu. Select Smith B from the adjacent Two columns drop-down menu. Select Over Credit Limit from the Type columns drop-down menu. Click the OK button in the top of the Set Company Alerts window to apply the alert rule. Click the Close button within the Action Items window to close it. Enter the quote system date. Start the Sage 50 application. Open the company file completed through the end of the previous chapter's exercise. Select Options, Change System Date from the menu bar to open the Change System Date window. Enter Date into the Date field. Click the OK button within the dialog box to set the new system date. Save this company file for the following exercises within this tutorial.